minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
To begin, we will give a general overview of solid rocket motors. Most motors use an ammonium perchlorate-based propellant. This propellant is formed into segments, called grains, with some sort of bore geometry through the center. This propellant is ignited and burns from the inside out with only one way to go, out the nozzle. This exploits Newton's third law of motion by expelling superheated propellant, now in a gaseous phase, out the nozzle at supersonic speeds, thrusting the rocket in the opposite direction. Rocket nozzles accelerate the exhaust by using a converging-diverging nozzle, the geometry of which pinches the flow to Mach in the tightest region, which is called the throat. From this point, the exhaust velocity is supersonic and scales proportional to the cross-sectional area, giving the nozzles their bell shape. The nozzle needs to take a lot of heat and as such requires the material to be carefully selected. Perhaps the most famous solid rocket motor design was the one used for the Space Shuttle side boosters. ATK used a proprietary carbon phenolic composite liner for their nozzles, which perhaps is the best material choice for large-scaled solid rocket motors. Carbon phenolic is tricky to make and not easily machinable, so this material isn't very attainable for an organization like Oregon State's aerospace program. Instead, we use one of the next best options, graphite. Graphite can be purchased at relatively inexpensive prices, and though not easy, it can be machined on campus in our shop without advanced techniques. Graphite is our number one choice for nozzle material because of this and its excellent thermal properties.
Why are carbon-based compounds so much better for high-pressure, high-temperature situations than metals? This, of course, has answers on a molecular, even atomic level. Metals use the metallic bonding mechanism, which we have learned in class is significantly weaker than a highly covalent bond. Carbon can arrange itself into different forms, but all of these use covalent bonding. Metals conduct electricity very well. That is because they do not hold on to their electrons strongly. Instead, the electrons delocalize and are shared between atoms. Covalent bonds, on the other hand, bond strictly by sharing electrons. If two atoms have free electrons that are not bonded to anything, they will move very close to each other and bond directly. This tight interface creates a very strong bond which requires a much higher separation energy. Although, if we do consider metals as a material that is suitable for a rocket nozzle, a couple of the metals we may be interested in would be steel, aluminum, titanium, and niobium. Steel, while seeming to be a practical solution on the surface, has odd heating characteristics that cause weird expansion properties as it gets warm. Steels also have a low yield strength with respect to their ultimate strength, and they also have bad fracture properties. Think of a frag grenade. Aluminum, while also a common metal and possibly a good solution, has a big issue with melting temperature. Aluminum as a rocket nozzle would just basically vaporize. Titanium is also a good option, but digging a little deeper, titanium is incredibly expensive and is very hard to machine. So while titanium may be like carbon fiber and a big catchword in engineering these days, it would not make a great rocket nozzle. Niobium would actually be a pretty good option, but again, it's expensive. It's really expensive. However, some more advanced rocket companies have begun using niobium as a material for their rocket nozzle, but it requires very advanced machining techniques, such as flow forming.
Energy comes in many forms. One of them is heat, and that's where we return to our study of rocket nozzles. Rocket flames burn very hot, generally exceeding the melting point of common metals. It doesn't take much energy to rip electron clouds apart, so metals simply do not work for extremely volatile propellants. Covalent bonds are different. Although some have low separation energy, carbon compounds have high separation energies. The melting point of graphite is 3,650 degrees Celsius. Compare that to steel, whose melting point is only 1,370 degrees. So why is graphite the best option? How about diamond? Diamond is celebrated and recognized as the world's toughest material, but its thermal properties simply do not stand up to graphite. Diamond has a melting point of 3,550 degrees Celsius, only 100 degrees lower than graphite, but that 100 degrees is still a large difference. So why is this the case? To understand this, we need to explore the world of unit structures. Diamond has a tetrahedral unit structure, while graphite has a hexagonal structure. This means that in diamond, each carbon atom connects to 4 other carbon atoms. As carbon only has 4 electrons in its outer shell, all available electrons are used up in single bonds. On the other hand, each carbon atom in graphite connects to only 3 other carbon atoms, all in the same plane. These are still single bonds. Thus, there is an extra electron that floats around each carbon atom. Ironically, this acts similar to a metallic delocalized electron cloud, but actually strengthens the bond between carbon atoms, raising the separation temperature even above diamond.
So now that we've gone over the material science of graphite for rocket nozzles, I'll give a brief overview of how Oregon State's rocketry program uses graphite nozzles in our various stages of solid rocket motor development. We'll show examples of successful and unsuccessful tests. First, we machine subscale nozzles for short and quick propellant characterization tests performed on campus. These propellants are entirely student-developed and optimized. Multiple subscale tests with varying throat diameters are conducted to confirm the one that will produce the desired thrust curve. This first subscale test is of a less energetic propellant used in the 2017 30,000-foot rocket. Notice its long burn time and small flame. Following that is a new propellant, which is more energetic. It has a shorter burn time and a larger flame. Both of these tests burn the same amount of propellant, but in very different amounts of time. Here's the more energetic propellant again, but this time with an accidental mix, producing triple the expected chamber pressure. Luckily, this gives us a great cross-section example of the nozzle. Rockets are hard, and a lot can be learned from failure. The flaws and failures of this rocket motor are identified and being eliminated for a successful test soon. But until then, we get to enjoy this great footage.